43 years of handwritten recipes, my grandmother-in-law's life in a leather journal, and my sister-in-law told every food blogger in Kentucky that it burned in a house fire. It didn't burn. I have it. It's in my nightstand, next to the reading glasses Dorothea gave me the last time I saw her breathing. My name is Francesca Roberson, 34, 7th grade English teacher, Paducah, Kentucky. Leah, that's my husband's brother's wife, she didn't just lie about the journal being gone. She copied every recipe, launched an Instagram brand called Dot's Kitchen with 97,000 followers, and landed a booth at the McCracken County Heritage Food Festival. So the woman who stole my grandmother-in-law's life's work was about to perform it live, on a stage, 14 feet from where I'd be handing out bookmarks to 6th graders. And she had no idea the journal was in my bag. If you want to know what happened when Leah Roberson opened her mouth in front of 200 people and described a memory that never existed, hit subscribe and stay with me. Because the woman who built her brand on a dead woman's handwriting was about to read from the original copy. I've got the whole story. This one took me 2 years to understand and about 45 seconds to end. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight and what time it is where you are. I always read those. Now, let me take you back to September of 2021, the first week Dorothea Roberson's kitchen smelled different. And by different, I mean empty. I met Colton Roberson my junior year at Murray State. He was a history major who couldn't cook toast. I was an English education major who grew up helping my mother can tomatoes every August in our kitchen in Mayfield. We got married in 2015. Small ceremony at Grace Episcopal, maybe 60 people. His family was loud and warm and enormous, and I loved them immediately. But the person I loved most in that family wasn't Colton. It was his grandmother, Dorothea. Everyone called her Dot. Dot was 78 when I married in, and she had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room who mattered. She was tiny, maybe 5'2", always in these floral aprons she ordered from a catalog in Tennessee. Her kitchen was on Freedman Lane, this little yellow house with a screened-in porch where she kept basil and mint in clay pots. I started going over there Tuesdays after school. I'd bring papers to grade, and she'd be at the stove. She taught me her cornbread, the real one, with bacon grease and buttermilk and a cast-iron skillet that had to be older than me. She taught me her bourbon pecan pie, which had a splash of sorghum that nobody else in the family knew about. She taught me green tomato relish with fennel seed, which sounds strange until you taste it. The journal lived on a shelf above her spice rack. Brown leather, soft from decades of handling. Every recipe in her handwriting. This sharp, angular cursive that leaned hard to the right. She dated everything. The oldest entry was from 1978. The newest was 3 weeks before she died. Dot told me once, standing at her counter rolling out biscuit dough, she said, "Francesca, you're the only one who asks me why. Everyone else just wants the recipe. You want to know why the butter has to be frozen, why the flour gets sifted twice. That's the difference between cooking and keeping." I didn't realize until later that she was telling me something about the journal, about who she trusted with it. Now, Leah Hargrove married Nash Roberson in 2017. Nash is Colton's younger brother, 3 years apart. Leah was from Lexington, worked in pharmaceutical sales, drove a white Audi, and had the kind of confidence that made you feel like you were always half a step behind in a conversation. I want to be fair here. Leah wasn't cruel when she showed up. She was just shiny. She had opinions about wine that nobody asked for, and a way of redirecting any conversation back to herself that felt so smooth you didn't notice until later. But she did not cook. I want to be clear about that. Leah Roberson did not cook. She ordered DoorDash 3 times a week and once asked Dot what blanching meant at Thanksgiving. Dot answered her politely. Then she looked at me across the kitchen and raised one eyebrow about a quarter inch. That was Dot's whole commentary. Dot got sick in the spring of 2021. Pancreatic. By the time they found it, there wasn't much to discuss. She went from the kitchen to a hospital bed in her living room in about 9 weeks. I was there 4 days a week, sometimes 5. I'd bring her ginger tea and grade papers in the chair next to her bed while she dozed. Colton came when he could. He manages the floor at the Paducah Lowe's, so his schedule was tight. Nash came on weekends. Leah came twice in 9 weeks. Both times, she stayed under an hour and spent most of it on her phone. The journal conversation happened on a Wednesday, August 11th. Dot was having a clear day. Those were getting rarer. She asked me to bring her the leather journal from the kitchen shelf. I did. She held it against her chest with both hands, and she looked at me and said, "I'm giving this to you, not to the family, to you, because you'll know what to do with it." I tried to say something, and she shook her head. She said, "Put it away before anyone else gets here. I don't want a discussion." So I put it in my school bag, and I took it home, and I put it in my nightstand drawer. Dot died September 3rd, 2021. I was holding her hand. The funeral was at Milner and Orr on Lone Oak Road. Half of McCracken County showed up. Leah wore a black dress that looked like it cost more than my car payment and cried harder than anyone. I remember thinking, that's not fair, Francesca. Grief doesn't have a dress code. People process differently. I was trying to be generous. I was always trying to be generous with Leah. After the funeral, the family decided Leah and Nash would clean out Dot's house since they had the most flexible schedule. Leah was between pharmaceutical jobs. Nash was doing freelance IT work from home. It made sense. 3 weeks later, Leah mentioned at a family dinner that most of Dot's kitchen things had been donated to Goodwill. The pots, the old aprons, the stuff on the shelves. She said it casually, spooning potato salad onto her plate. Colton asked about the recipe journal. Leah looked at him with this expression, concern maybe, or something shaped like it, and said, "Oh, honey, that old leather book? It was in the box that got water damage from the bathroom leak. I'm so sorry. The pages were ruined. I had to throw it out." I sat there. I didn't move. I didn't say a word, because the journal was in my nightstand, and Leah had just lied about it to a table full of people who believed her. I should have said something right then. I know that. But Dot had told me to keep it private. And Colton's whole family was still raw from losing her. And I thought, maybe Leah just didn't know. Maybe she assumed it was gone because she never looked for it. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. That was my first mistake. For about 6 months, nothing happened. The journal stayed in my drawer. I'd take it out sometimes after Colton fell asleep and flip through the pages. Dot's handwriting. Her little notes in the margins. Curtis hates raisins, sub-dried cranberries for him. Or, double the garlic, November 1994, Francesca's suggestion. She'd written my name in there 11 times. I counted. Life moved on the way it does. I was teaching, Colton was working. We were trying to start a family. That's a whole other story I won't get into. But it wasn't going well, and it was taking a toll. I was tired a lot. Leah and Nash came to Sunday dinners at Colton's parents' house, and everything felt normal enough. Then, in March of 2022, my colleague Tamika Osei, she teaches 6th grade social studies, been my closest friend at the school for 5 years. She sent me an Instagram link during our planning period. The message said, "Is this your family?" It was a page called Dot's Kitchen. The profile picture was a close-up of a cast-iron skillet with cornbread in it. The bio read, "Preserving the recipes of Dorothea Robertson. Family food. Heritage cooking. Run by her granddaughter-in-law with love." I sat at my desk and scrolled. Leah had posted 46 times. Every post was a recipe from the journal. the bourbon pecan pie, the green tomato relish, the buttermilk cornbread, the brown sugar ham glaze Dot only made at Christmas. Each one photographed beautifully. Leah had clearly hired someone or gotten very good with a camera, and each one captioned with little stories about learning at Grandma Dot's knee and Sunday afternoons in her yellow kitchen. She described the fennel seed in the relish as our little secret. She called the sorghum in the pie something Grandma Dot whispered to me one Thanksgiving. Leah had never made that relish. Leah didn't know what sorghum was until I told her at a cookout in 2019. And Dot's kitchen wasn't yellow on the inside. It was green, pale green with white trim. You'd only know that if you'd actually been there. She had 14,000 followers already. The comments were all heart emojis and, "This is so beautiful," and, "Your grandmother would be so proud." I showed Colton that night. I pulled up the page on my phone and handed it to him and said, "Did you know about this?" He scrolled for maybe 30 seconds. Then of 30-second, "It's nice, right? She's keeping Grandma's memory alive." "Colton, she said the journal was destroyed. Maybe she had some recipes written down separately. Or she remembered them. She remembered the fennel seed? She asked your grandmother what blanching meant." He got quiet. Then he said, "Fran, I don't want to start a thing with Nash and Leah over an Instagram page. It's harmless." Harmless. I heard that word a lot over the next year. I was sitting there that night, holding the journal open to a page where Dot had written my name. And the woman who couldn't tell you the difference between sorghum and maple syrup had 14,000 people convinced it was all hers. That's the part that sat in my ribs like a stone. You know what that loneliness is. When people care, they just don't care the right way. When your husband calls it harmless, and you're holding the proof in your hands, and the proof doesn't matter because nobody's asking to see it. Drop me a comment if you've been there. If you've been the person who actually showed up and then watched someone else collect the flowers for it. I promise you, you're not crazy. And this story gets a lot more specific from here, because Leah wasn't done with Instagram. Next came Heritage Night at my school. My classroom, my hallway. But that's coming, because Leah wasn't done. Not even close. By summer of 2022, Dot's Kitchen had 41,000 followers. Leah had quit her pharmaceutical job. She was posting 3 times a week, recipe videos, heritage cooking tutorials, little essays about what food means in a Southern family. She started selling seasoning blends online, $12 a jar. The labels said, Dot's Kitchen, established 1978, with a little drawing of a cast-iron skillet. 1978. That was the year of the first entry in the journal. The journal, Leah said, was destroyed. Tamika noticed it before I did. She pulled me aside in the teacher's lounge one morning. We were between first and second period. And she said, "Francesca, have you looked at her recent posts?" Really looked? I hadn't. I'd been avoiding the page for my own sanity. Tamika showed me. Leah had started posting close-up photos of handwritten recipe cards. Neat, careful cursive on cream-colored cards. And the recipes were word for word from the journal. I mean, down to the parenthetical notes and the abbreviations. 1/2 cup B. milk, the way Dot always wrote buttermilk. TSP. Not TBSP. With an exclamation point, which was a note Dot had added after a baking disaster in 1986. She copied them, Tamika said. She photographed the journal before she said it was destroyed, and she's been copying the recipes onto new cards. I felt sick, physically. I went to the bathroom and stood there with my hands on the sink for maybe 5 minutes. That's the thing about this kind of betrayal. It's not a punch, it's a slow drain. You wake up one morning and someone has taken something that mattered more to you than almost anything else in your life, and they're selling it for $12 a jar with a cute label. and your husband thinks it's harmless. I went home that night and took the journal out of my nightstand. I sat on the bed and opened it to a random page. October 2003. Sweet potato casserole with brown butter and sage. Dot's handwriting. A note in the margin. Francesca tried this one and added pecans. Better her way. She wrote that in 2019, 18 years after the recipe. She went back and updated it because of something I'd done. And then I saw what Leah had posted that same afternoon. The sweet potato casserole recipe, card for card, minus the note about me. She'd copied Dot's recipe and erased my name from it. I confronted Leah at a Sunday dinner in August of 2022. Not dramatically. I'm not that person. I waited until we were in the kitchen alone, loading the dishwasher, and I said, "Leah, can we talk about the Instagram page?" She didn't even look up from the plate she was rinsing. "What about it?" "Those recipes. They're from Dot's journal." "I told you, the journal was ruined. These are recipes I learned from Dot over the years. I have a good memory. You posted the brown butter sage note from the sweet potato casserole, word for word, including the abbreviation for teaspoon with an exclamation point." Now she looked at me, and she smiled. Not a mean smile, worse, a patient one. Like I was a student who'd gotten the wrong answer on a test, and she was trying to be kind about it. "Francesca," she said, "you married in. That's sweet that you bonded with Dot. Really, it is. But these recipes are Robertson family heritage. They belong to the family. I'm the one doing the work of preserving them. If anything, you should be thanking me. You married in." 3 words. As if 9 years of Tuesdays in Dot's kitchen didn't count. As if the 11 times Dot wrote my name in that journal meant nothing, because my last name used to be something else. I stood there with a wet plate in my hands, and I didn't say anything. I couldn't find the words. Leah patted my shoulder as she walked past me back to the dining room. Actually patted my shoulder. Colton asked me later why I was quiet on the drive home. I told him what Leah said. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "She's not wrong that the recipes belong to the family, Fran. She lied about the journal. You don't know that for sure." "I do know that for sure." "How?" I almost told him. I was so close. But something stopped me. I thought about Dot saying, "Put it away before anyone else gets here." I thought about the fact that if I told Colton, he'd tell Nash, Nash would tell Leah, and the journal would become a family argument instead of what it actually was. A gift from a woman who knew exactly what she was doing when she chose who to trust. So I said, "I just know." And Colton sighed and turned up the radio. I sat in the driveway for a minute after we parked, engine off, seatbelt still on. The weight of that conversation, the kitchen, Leah's shoulder pat, Colton's silence. It all just pressed down on me at once. I wasn't angry. I was tired. The kind of tired where you realize you're fighting alone and you don't know how long you can keep going. Have you ever held a truth that could fix everything, but you know the timing isn't right? What would you have done? I still don't know if I chose right. Tell me in the comments, because I waited. And while I waited, Leah got bigger. She got the festival. She got the feature articles. She got $4,000 a month from a dead woman's handwriting. But first, let me tell you about the night Leah came to my school. October 2022. My school, Reedland Middle, hosted a family heritage night as part of our fall curriculum. 7th graders presented projects about their family histories. Food, photos, traditions. I'd organized the whole thing. Leah showed up uninvited with a folding table, a portable burner, and a stack of Dot's kitchen business cards. She sat up in the hallway outside my classroom and started making cornbread samples. I found out when a student came in during the presentations and said, "Mrs. Robertson, there's a lady outside making food and she says she's your family." Tamika was standing next to me. She looked at me, and I looked at her, and neither of us said a word for about 3 seconds. Then Tamika said, very quietly, "Do you want me to handle it?" No, it's fine. It was not fine. I walked out into the hallway and there was Leah in a Dot's Kitchen branded apron. She'd had aprons made, handing out cornbread to parents and students and telling them about her grandmother-in-law's legacy. She had a little sign that said, "Heritage Recipes since 1978. She saw me and her face lit up. "Fran, I thought this would be perfect for your event. Family heritage, right? I brought enough for everyone." She said it loud enough for every parent in the hallway to hear. And every parent in the hallway thought it was wonderful. This generous woman, bringing homemade food to a school event, honoring her family's traditions. I smiled. I said, "That's so thoughtful, Leah." And I went back into my classroom and sat at my desk for a full minute before I could look at my students again. That night, Leo posted photos from the event on Instagram, bringing Grandma Dot's cornbread to the next generation. Heritage matters. 4,000 likes. Comments saying, "You're an angel," and "Dot would be so proud." Tamika called me at 9 p.m. She said, "I need to ask you something and I need you to answer me honestly." "Okay. You know something you're not telling people. I can see it. What is it?" I told her. Everything. The journal, Dot's instructions, the nightstand drawer, the lie about the water damage. Tamika was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Francesca, you have proof that she's lying and you're just sitting on it. Dot told me to keep it private. Dot also trusted you to know what to do with it. That's what she said, right? She said you'd know what to do." I didn't sleep that night. Winter into spring of 2023. Leah's page hit 67,000 followers. She got a feature in the Paducah Sun, half-page article with a photo of her in Dot's actual kitchen, which she'd convinced Nash's parents to let her use for a photo shoot. The headline read, "Local woman preserves grandmother's culinary legacy." She was doing pop-up dinners. $75 a plate. Sold out every time. She catered a wedding in Murray and a corporate event in Hopkinsville. She was pulling in, by my estimate, somewhere around $4,000 a month from the seasoning blends alone. And then the McCracken County Heritage Food Festival called. Every October, the festival takes over the Riverfront Park. It's a big deal locally. Food vendors, craft booths, a main stage with cooking demonstrations. Reedland Middle always runs a literacy booth. I've been there every year since I started teaching. The festival committee selected Leah for the featured Heritage Cook demonstration. Main stage, 2 o'clock slot. She would cook one of her signature recipes live in front of an audience, followed by a Q&A about family food traditions. A reporter from Kentucky Living magazine was scheduled to attend. Leah called Nash. Nash called Colton. Colton told me at dinner like it was good news. Leah got the Heritage Festival main stage. Isn't that cool? I put my fork down. She's cooking Dot's recipes on a stage at the festival where I run a booth. She's going to be performing our family's stolen heritage 14 feet from where I'm working. Fran. Don't Fran me. They're recipes. She's not hurting anyone. She's lying to thousands of people. For money. He got up and went to the living room. I heard the TV click on, and I sat at that kitchen table by myself and thought about what Tamika said, about Dot trusting me to know what to do. Not everyone's meant to build something, Fran. Some people teach. Some people do. That's what Leah had said to me at Easter, casually, while I was clearing plates and she was showing Nash's parents her revenue projections on her phone. She didn't even look at me when she said it. She was looking at the screen. Some people teach. Some people do. You think $12 jars were the worst of it? Like this video. Because what she did next made me leave the kitchen table. Summer 2023. I did something I'm not sure was brave or petty. And honestly, I still go back and forth on it. I started photographing the journal. Every page. Front and back. I used my phone and a clip-on document light Tamika lent me from the social studies supply closet. 312 pages. Took me 3 nights after Colton went to sleep. I wasn't planning anything. That's what I told myself. I was just documenting, preserving, the way a teacher preserves primary sources. That's all. Tamika didn't buy it. "You're building a case," she said at lunch one day. We were in her classroom. She had this look. Not judgment, exactly. More like she was watching me figure out something she'd already figured out. "I'm protecting Dot's work. You're preparing for a fight." I didn't argue. She wasn't wrong. Then in August, I found Leah's festival application. It was public record. The festival committee posts them on the county website as part of the heritage vendor approval process. I looked it up during my planning period. Under Connection to Heritage Cuisine, Leah had written, "Recipes passed down directly to me by my grandmother-in-law, Dorothea Robertson, through her personal recipe journal, which I inherited after her passing." Inherited. She wrote inherited in a public document about a journal she told my husband's entire family was destroyed by water damage. I printed that application. I put it in a manila folder, and I put the folder in my school bag next to the stack of reading comprehension worksheets. I still didn't have a plan, but I had a folder. September came fast. The festival was October 14th. Leah was everywhere. Interviews, social media countdowns, a feature in the Paducah Life newsletter. She'd designed a Dot's kitchen tent with matching tablecloths and banners. Nash was helping her build a display board with old family photos. Photos that Leah had collected from Nash's parents' house without asking anyone's permission. One of those photos was from Dot's 81st birthday. Leah had cropped it for her Instagram. In the original, Dot is standing at her kitchen counter with her arm around me. In Leah's cropped version, it's just Dot, alone, next to a pie. She'd cut me out. Tamika saw my face when I showed her. She said one thing, October 14th. I nodded. What she meant was, "Are you going to do anything? Or are you going to watch this happen?" I still didn't know the answer, but the festival was 5 weeks away, and I had a journal, a folder, and a friend who wasn't going to let me pretend this was fine. 5 days before the festival, I was at the literacy booth setup meeting when Mrs. Gatlin said something that knocked the wind out of me. The festival committee rents us a tent, and we coordinate with other school groups on layout. Mrs. Gatlin, retired teacher, been running the committee for 12 years, mentioned during the meeting that the Kentucky Living Reporter wasn't just covering Leah's demo. She was doing a larger piece on food heritage in the Jackson Purchase region, and she wanted to interview multiple people connected to local food traditions. Mrs. Gatlin looked at me and said, "Francesca, you should talk to her. Everyone knows you and Dorothea were close. The Robertson family is a big part of Paducah food history." I said, "Maybe," and I meant it in the vaguest possible way. But then Mrs. Gatlin said something that made my chest tight. She said, "Leah mentioned you might have some photos of Dorothea's kitchen. She said you could provide background context for her story." Background context. I sat there with my hands folded on the folding table and felt the room tilt. This wasn't Leah ignoring me. This wasn't Leah pretending I didn't matter. This was Leah actively writing me into her story as a footnote, the helpful sister-in-law who might have some photos to support Leah's narrative. She'd positioned me as a prop in the story of my own life with Dot, and she'd done it through Mrs. Gatlin in a committee meeting where I couldn't react without looking unhinged. I drove home that meeting replaying it. Part of me, the part that's been an English teacher for 11 years, the part that reads essays and can tell you by paragraph 2 whether a student did their own work, that part knew the journal would speak for itself. Dot's handwriting, my name, the dates. The evidence was irrefutable. But there was another part, the part that whispered, what if it's not enough? What if Leah cries on stage and people feel sorry for her? What if Colton takes her side again and you're the one who ruined Thanksgiving for the next 10 years? I didn't know which part to listen to. That night, I sat on my bed with the journal open on my lap. I turned to the last entry, August 19th, 2021, 2 weeks before Dot died. It wasn't a recipe. It was a note. Francesca keeps every recipe like it's a letter. That's why I gave her this book. Leah asked Nash to take photos of my recipe cards last Christmas. I told him no. Some things aren't for taking. Dot knew. She knew before any of us. The truth someone earns is heavier than the truth someone steals. That came to me sitting on that bed. I don't know if it's wisdom, but it felt like the truest thing I'd thought in 2 years. I closed the journal. I put it in my school bag. And I decided, not in some big moment of clarity, not with music swelling, I just decided. The way you decide to finally return a phone call you've been avoiding. I decided that on October 14th, I was going to bring the journal to the festival. Not to make a scene, not to humiliate anyone, just to have it with me, in case truth needed a witness. The journal was in my bag, the leather corner pressed against my hip when I walked. 5 days felt like a held breath. Would you have brought it? Knowing your husband would see, knowing his whole family would be there? Tell me honestly. Drop it in the comments. Because I walked into that festival with Dot's handwriting in my bag, and what happened on October 14th is something I still replay at least once a week. October 14th, 2023. Clear sky, 58 degrees. The kind of fall day in Paducah where the light hits the river and everything looks like it was painted. I got to the festival at 8 a.m. to set up the literacy booth. Tamika was already there with a box of bookmarks and a sign she'd made that said, "Feed your mind, free books." She saw my face and said, "You brought it." I brought it. Good. Leah's tent was visible from our booth. It was enormous. White canopy with a Dot's Kitchen banner in forest green. She had a full cooking setup. 2 portable burners, a prep table, the cast iron skillet she'd bought to match Dot's original. There was a display board with the cropped family photos, a timeline of Dot's Kitchen heritage going back to 1978, and a stack of Dot's Kitchen cookbooks. Self-published, $24.99, available today only for $18 at the festival price. I saw all of this from 50 feet away, and I saw the small print at the bottom of the display. All recipes from the personal collection of Dorothea Robertson, preserved and curated by Leah Hargrove Robertson. Colton came by around noon. He brought me a coffee and a pulled pork sandwich. He was being nice. We'd been tense for months. He saw me looking at Leah's tent and he said, "Fran, please. Not today." "I'm not doing anything, Colton." "You have that look." "What look?" "The look you get when you're about to give a pop quiz nobody's ready for." I almost laughed. At 1:45 p.m., people started gathering in front of the main stage. Leah was backstage. I could see her through the side flap, adjusting her apron, checking her phone. Nash was there, helping her carry supplies. Colton had drifted over to watch. His parents, Bev and Frank Robertson, were in the front row. They looked proud. Bev had a Dot's Kitchen tote bag. The festival MC introduced Leah at 2 p.m. sharp. Please welcome Leah Robertson, founder of Dot's Kitchen, who's here today to share her grandmother-in-law's legendary bourbon pecan pie recipe. A recipe that's been in the Robertson family since 1978. Since 1978, the year of the first journal entry. Leah took the microphone. She was good. I'll give her that. She had a warm stage presence, knew how to work the crowd. She started talking about Dorothea, how Dot had welcomed her into the kitchen from day one, how they'd spent hours together learning the old recipes, how Dot had specifically chosen Leah to carry on the tradition. And then she said it. Grandma Dot used to say, and this is one of my favorite memories, she'd be standing at that counter, and she'd look at me and say, "Leah, You're the only one who asks me why. Everyone else just wants the recipe. You want to know why the butter has to be frozen. My hands went still. I was standing at the edge of the crowd, maybe 30 feet from the stage. Tamika was next to me. She grabbed my wrist. Because those weren't Leah's words. They were mine. That exact sentence, "You're the only one who asks me why," is what Dot said to me, to Francesca, in her kitchen, while rolling biscuit dough. And I know it was real because Dot wrote it down. Page 287, November 2019. Told Francesca she's the only one who asks me why. She is. Leah had found that page when she photographed the journal, and she stole the memory. Not just the recipe, the memory. I didn't plan what happened next. I need you to believe that. Leah was on stage, cracking eggs into a bowl, describing the bourbon pecan pie. She was explaining the sorghum, a little secret Grandma Dot shared with me one fall afternoon. 200 people watching. The Kentucky Living reporter in the front row with a recorder. The festival photographer clicking away. And then Leah picked up a cream-colored recipe card from her prep table and held it up to the audience. "This is one of Dot's original cards," she said. "I keep them all in a box at home. This is her handwriting." It wasn't Dot's handwriting. It was Leah's copy of Dot's handwriting. And I knew the difference the way I know the difference between a student's original essay and one they copied off the internet. I've been an English teacher for 11 years. I know what original text looks like, but the audience didn't know that. They saw a handwritten card, and they believed it. The reporter raised her hand. "Leah, you mentioned a family recipe journal in your application materials. Is that available for the feature? Our readers love original artifacts." Leah's smile didn't flicker. The original journal was unfortunately lost. Water damage after Dot passed. But I photographed everything before it was destroyed. And I've been recreating the cards by hand from those photos. Every recipe preserved, exactly as Dot wrote it. She said it smooth, practiced, like she'd rehearsed it. I opened my school bag. I took out the journal. Tamika said, "Francesca." I didn't answer. I walked toward the stage. I wasn't running. I wasn't shaking. I was just walking the way I walked to my classroom every morning. Steady, quiet, sure. The reporter saw me first. She saw what I was carrying. A leather journal, clearly old, clearly real. She looked at it, then at Leah's recipe card, then back at me. Leah saw me at the same time. Her hand stopped moving over the bowl. I watched her eyes track from my face to the journal, and I saw the exact moment she understood. I didn't get on the stage. I didn't grab the microphone. I walked up to the reporter, and I said, calmly, "My name is Francesca Roberson. I'm Dorothea Roberson's granddaughter-in-law, and this is her recipe journal. The original. It wasn't destroyed. She gave it to me before she died." I opened it to page 287. I held it where the reporter could see it. Dot's handwriting. The real thing. Sharp and angular and leaning right. And the note. Told Francesca she's the only one who asks me why. She is. The reporter looked at the journal. She looked at Leah's recipe card on the stage. She looked at Leah. The audience had gone quiet. 200 people, and you could hear the river. Leah said, I don't know what that is. That could be anything. Anyone could have written that." But she was gripping the counter. Her knuckles were white. Nash stood up from his chair next to the stage. He looked at the journal. He looked at Leah. And he said, quietly, but in the silence, everyone heard, "Leah, you told me Grandma's journal was ruined." "It was." "Then what is Francesca holding?" Leah opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not." The reporter was already photographing the journal page. She'd set her recorder on the edge of the stage. She said, "Professional and even. Leah, your festival application states the journal was inherited by you. Can you clarify?" And Leah did what Leah always did when the world stopped cooperating with her version of events. She looked at me with those patient eyes. and she said, "Francesca, I don't know what you're trying to do here, but this is really inappropriate. This is my event." Your event, your recipes, your memories, your journal. I said it flat, not angry. Except page 147 says Francesca's green tomato relish variation. She added the fennel. And page 203 says Fran's idea to use sorghum. She was right. And the last page, August 19th, 2021, says Leah asked Nash to take photos of my recipe cards last Christmas. I told him no. Some things aren't for taking. I didn't have to read any more. Dot had written it, in her own hand, dated, undeniable. Bev Robertson, Colton and Nash's mother, stood up from the front row. She walked to the edge of the stage and she said, "Leah, let me see that journal." Leah didn't move. "Now." I handed the journal to Bev. She opened it to the front page. She read whatever was there. I think it was the dedication. Something Dot had written in 1978 when she started the book. Bev's hand went to her mouth. She turned pages slowly. Then she looked at Leah and said, "This is my mother-in-law's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. And it says Francesca. Over and over. It says Francesca." Nash took one step back from Leah. One step. But in that crowd, with that silence, it was the loudest thing that happened all day. Done. I was done. The festival committee quietly ended Leah's demonstration. Mrs. Gatlin came over with the events coordinator and said something about a scheduling issue and moved the next act up by 30 minutes. Leah packed up her supplies without looking at anyone. Nash carried her boxes to the car, but he didn't speak to her. I watched them walk across the parking lot 6 feet apart. The Kentucky Living reporter found me at the literacy booth an hour later. Her name was Renata, and she asked if she could see the journal. I let her photograph 10 pages. Recipes where Dot mentioned me by name, the last entry, and the front dedication. Renata said the Heritage article would need to be significantly revised. She asked if I'd be willing to be interviewed instead. I said I'd think about it. Then I walked to the Porta-John line behind the food trucks, because it was the only place at that festival where nobody would look for me. I didn't make it inside. I sat down on the curb next to a stack of folding chairs and my hands started shaking. Not a little. The kind of shaking where you can see it, where your fingers look like they belong to someone else. My breathing went shallow and my vision got blurry around the edges, and I pressed my palms flat against the pavement because the ground was the only thing that felt solid. I'd held it together in front of 200 people. I'd held it together in front of Leah and Nash and Bev and the reporter and my students' parents who were watching from the crowd. And now the adrenaline was leaving, and all that was left was this hollow, vibrating feeling, like I'd been running for 2 years and had finally stopped, and my body didn't know what to do with the stillness. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes. A teenager walked past me carrying a funnel cake and didn't look twice. That felt right. Nobody needed to see this part. Colton found me at 4 p.m. He was standing at the edge of my booth with his hands in his jacket pockets. He looked like he'd been punched. "I owe you an apology." "Yes, I should have believed you. You should have asked." He started to say something. I thought she was just... And then he stopped. He closed his mouth and stood there for a second. I could see him hearing his own excuse forming and deciding it sounded exactly like what it was. "You're right. There's nothing after just that makes it okay." He took my hand. We stood there for a while. It wasn't a movie moment. We didn't embrace or cry or say anything perfect. We just stood there holding hands while teenagers walked past us eating funnel cake. The fallout came fast. Nash confronted Leah that evening. I wasn't there for that, but Colton got a call from his brother at 11 p.m. Nash had gone through Leah's phone and found a folder. 312 photographs of the journal, taken on Leah's own phone. Every page. Time-stamped September 2021, 3 weeks after Dot died. taken in Dot's kitchen during the cleanup, where Leah said the journal was destroyed. She'd photographed it. Then she'd hidden it in a donation box where it would disappear. She didn't know Dot had already given it to me. Nash said she kept repeating, "I just wanted something that was mine." He said it was the only time she didn't sound rehearsed. Nash also found Leah's financial records for Dot's kitchen. In 2 years, she'd made $87,000 from the seasoning blends, pop-up dinners, catered events, and cookbook sales. $87,000 from a dead woman's handwriting. Within a week, the Paducah Sun ran a correction to their original feature on Leah. The headline was, "Questions arise about local food brands' heritage claims." Leah's Instagram followers dropped from 97,000 to 61,000 in 12 days. She deleted the account by November. Nash filed for separation in December. I'm not going to pretend that was just about the journal. There were other things, apparently, that the journal revelation cracked open. But I know it started there. Bev Robertson called me the week after the festival. She said, "Francesca, I'm sorry. I should have known. Dot talked about you every time I visited. She never once mentioned Leah and cooking in the same sentence." It's okay, Bev. It's not okay. But we're going to make it right. 7 months have passed. It's May 2024. I'm sitting on my back porch. We have a small house on Buckner Lane. Nothing fancy. But there's a magnolia tree in the yard that blooms every spring. And it's blooming right now. Colton and I are better. We had some hard conversations after the festival. The kind that takes 6 hours and a lot of coffee and a few rounds of, "I was wrong," from both sides. He's been different since he saw those photographs on Nash's phone. He stopped saying, "harmless." He started asking me questions about Dot, real questions, about what she was like when it was just the two of us in that kitchen. I think he's grieving his grandmother all over again, and this time, he's letting me be part of it. The journal is on our kitchen shelf now, not in the nightstand, on the shelf where it can breathe. Tamika and I cook from it on weekends sometimes. Last Saturday, we made the green tomato relish, and she burned the fennel seeds, and we stood in my kitchen laughing until my stomach hurt. It was the first time I'd cooked from the journal without feeling like I was protecting it. I was just using it, the way Dot wanted. Bev asked me in March if I'd consider doing a real cookbook, a proper one, Dot's recipes, with my notes and Dot's original entries reproduced alongside them. She said, "Dot chose you. We should have listened." I told her I'd think about it, and I have been thinking about it, every day. Last week, a small press in Louisville, Limestone Publishing, reached out through the Kentucky Living article that Renata eventually wrote. The article focused on food heritage and the question of who has the right to a family's culinary story. My name was in it. The journal was photographed properly. All of it. Dot's handwriting, my name in the margins, the final entry. The publisher's email said they were interested in a heritage cookbook with personal narrative. They wanted to know if I was available for a call. I haven't responded yet. Now, you stayed for the whole thing. You listened to a 7th grade English teacher from Paducah, Kentucky, talk about a recipe journal for however long this has been. And the fact that you're still here means something to me. It really does. If this story reminded you of someone, a grandmother, a mother, an aunt, anyone who deserved more credit than they got, tell me about them. Leave their name in the comments. I'll read every single one. And if you think this story should find the person who needs it tonight, you know what to do. That button is right there. It helps more than you'd think. If you want more stories like this, people who waited, who held the truth until it mattered, I've got them. They're right here on this channel. There's a voicemail on my phone from Limestone Publishing. I've listened to it 3 times. I haven't called back. The journal is on my kitchen shelf. The magnolia is blooming. School lets out in 4 weeks. I'm going to make the call, I think. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, but I'm going to make it. Dot gave me the book. She trusted me to know what to do. Some things are worth the wait. I think I finally do.